Hello guys, welcome back to the second part of our object-oriented series in Python. In the last video we looked over what classes are and how to create a class and give some attributes to an object of a class, and also how to create an object. Okay, so in this video we're going to go over how to the instances and how to use instances and how to use methods in classes in Python. This will just help us to keep our code dry and to avoid repeating ourselves like we did in the previous tutorial. So let's get to it. So now you can see that we have repeated code a lot of time. We just copied the same thing and pasted it with few differences. So every time you are repeating something in programming, there is obviously a better way you can do it. So there's a principle that says the dry principle, which stands for do not repeat yourself. So you can see here we have repeated ourselves so many times. And object-oriented programming, one of the things that it supports, promotes, is do not repeat yourself principle. So we can do this in a better way. Imagine that you wanted to create like 1000 of these objects. So we should copy this and paste it 1000 times. That is highly inefficient. So to do this, we use classes. That's where the real power of classes comes in. So I'll just type out this. Don't worry, I'll explain to you what I'm doing just in a second. Let me type it so that you guys can see. Let me not use so I'll just say init and underscore. In here we'll take self and take price, location, bedrooms, and seller. Okay, so in here we will say self dot price equals to price, self dot location equals to location, self dot bedrooms equals to bedrooms, and then self dot seller equals to seller. Okay, now I'll explain to you what everything here does. So let me begin with the init method. So the init method, if you're coming from other programming languages like Java or C++, the init method, think of it like the constructor. If you are new to Python, new to programming, and Python happens to be your first programming language, think of the init method as the initialize, what will be called initiate or initialize. So this will be called every time you create an object, and it will be the first thing that will be called every time you create an object. So this is the initial thing that will be called. So init, initial, the first thing that will be called. Okay, so think of it like that. The self keyword is a reference that changes depending on the object that you are working with within a specific moment in time. So to do this, to show you, let me just copy this. I'll just copy these values and paste it in. I'll explain to you just in a second what I've done. Copy this and paste it in here, and then copy this and paste it in here. So I can comment now. I can comment out this. We have an error. I can comment out this. We don't need it anymore. So I'll do the same for the second one and just type it out 3, and then down, spelling down, east, and then 3, and then this is James. Okay, so I can also comment out this. So what I have done, I have put these two codes, this one over here and this one over here, all do the same thing. They give attributes to our objects that we have created here. But you can see this one is much simpler, and we didn't repeat code as many times compared to this one. So the init method, this method will be called every time you create an object. So this statement creates an object, and this object is apartment 1, and this is the second apartment 2, and in here we supply in those attributes that we want. So those attributes are passed into this init function. So down 2000 will be stored in price, downtown will be stored in location, bedrooms 2 will be stored in bedrooms, and prince will be stored in seller for the first object, and this the same thing will happen to the second object. So let me explain to you what the self is. So the self is, I have used self, but you can use any other name, but in Python by convention we use self, so just stick with it, don't change it, so use self. So self refers to the object that you're working, or the instance that you're working with at that specific moment. So on the first line we're working with the instance known as apartment1. So that apartment1, this name is passed into the place of self. So self is referring to this apartment. So in here you can see that to create attribute you use apartment1.price. So passing this one here will be apartment1.price will be equals to price which you have passed in here, apartment1.location because location which you have passed in here and received it, apartment1.bedroom, and so on. The same thing will happen when you're working with apartment2. So this refers to the instance that you are working with. Okay, so that is what the self variable is. It refers to the instance that you're working with. I know it's a bit difficult to understand right now, but just know it like that. That is the instance that you're actually, name of the instance that you're working with. So if I run this code right now, we should get the same output. You see that our code is less verbose. It consists of less lines of code by using a classes. All this we don't need it, we use a class. So if I run this, we should get the same outputs, which is this and this. Okay, so we have done all of this in here just by using these few lines of code, and we can use this for 1000 objects just by running only one line of code instead of writing 1, 2, 3, and 4 lines of code for each object. So that really saves a lot of time. So let's move on. Now that you know what the self variable is, you know what the init does, let's move on to methods. So I have told you that method is basically a class that exists within, method is basically a function that exists within a class rather. Okay, so in here let me see if you want to write like a description of let me change this to 1. To get a description of apartment1 we have to write a print statement over and over again, and if you want to do this for apartment2 you have to copy this and then we paste it here and then change all of this to 2. Okay, and then change all of this to 2. So this is, if you run this right now, we get the description of both apartments. Okay, now this is, imagine that you want to do this for 1000 apartments, you have to copy and paste this 1000 times. That is not efficient. So to do this, we can create a method that we can call that to do this for us. So we can just say def, and then we can call it description. It takes in the self. I explain to you just in a moment. And then it returns to us an f string, which will be price, not price. It will be I'll explain to you everything. Just watch as I type. I'll explain to you just in a moment. I don't know, I'm typing price, and then location. This will be self.location, and then we have a bedrooms, and here will be self.bedrooms, and then one thing we have seller, and this will be self.seller. Okay, so now we have everything ready. So let me just save this. I know it's a bit long, but just bear with me. So we have this method that returns to us a description of each apartment. Okay, so now we have to call this method so that you can see what the description of each apartment is. So I can just say print and then apartment1.description. So by running this, we are calling this method. So let me explain to you what this method is about. So the self keyword is referring to the the object, the instance that you're working with at a specific moment. So if I say apartment1.description, apartment1 is passed into the place of description, so the self is referring to apartment1. Okay, so it's going to return apartment1.price, apartment1.location, apartment1.bedrooms, and then apartment1.seller. Okay, so if you call apartment2, self will be apartment2. If you call apartment3, self will be apartment3. Okay, and it's a must that every method that you define within a class must have a self keyword. It's a must, compulsory, or your program won't work. It's just a must. So let's run this right now and see what we get. We get a description of the apartment, we get a price, so we can write even this with the second apartment without having to write that long print statement that you were using previously. So you see we get the same nice description of each apartment. So why do we need to pass in the self password? The self keyword. Let's say I remove it. What do you think will happen? So let me run this code. You're going to get an error, obviously. What does the error say? Description takes 0 positional arguments because we aren't taking anything in, but 1 was given. It is weird, right? Because at the point of calling this method, we didn't pass in anything, but Python is telling us that we did pass in something. So why is this happening? To understand this, let's look at how this works in the background. So apartment, how this work in the background is that when you say apartment2, let's use apartment1, apartment1.description. What Python does in the background, it does this. It calls the name of the class to which apartment1 belongs to, which is apartment, and then it calls that method that you are referring to, which is apartment1.description. And then in here, it passes in the object that is calling that method. Okay, that's what Python does in the background. So if I comment out this and run this code, let me pass in here the self. The self isn't compulsory. So if I run this right now, everything should work. We didn't get any output because we didn't print out. So I can simply print and then print out this. So if I run this code right now, we see we get the same output. So let me uncomment this. So these two lines basically do the same thing. So if I run this, we get the same output twice. So this line and this line do the same thing. But the point to take from this is that whenever you use this syntax, what happens in the background is that this syntax is used. Python calls the name of the class to which the object belongs to, and refers to that method and passes in the object that is calling that method. That's why we are accepting in here self, because this object will be passed in here. So it will be self.print this, and then self.price, so the locations of that method and so on. That's why we are passing in here self. We are receiving that object that is calling that specific method. Okay, that's why we are passing in self, because at the back, yes, we are accepting in here self, because in the background Python passes that self. That's why Python is telling you if you self does 0 positional arguments, the description takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was passed in, because in the background Python passes in this the object that is calling that method. So I hope you understand. So this is how you can work with methods and attributes in Python. So these attributes over here, these things which are within the init method, these are known as instance variables. These are known as instance variables because they are unique to each instance, and I told you instance is an object, so these are object variables. Since each object is likely to have a different attributes or set of variables, so this is what is known as an instance variable, since it is unique to each instance. Okay, so there is also class variables, which is all objects of a certain class share in common. So this is what we'll be looking at in the next tutorial. So see you there. So please don't forget, if you have any question, to ask in the comment section, or you can follow me on Instagram at Please don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching.